My name is Allison Smith. I'm chair of the Art History Department here at JCCC, and I would like to introduce you to Jean-Paul Retty, an artist from Paris, France, who is part of our Visiting Artist program.
I came here to JCCC a few months ago from a very special place in Paris, which is my place, where I have my studios. It's called usually the Frigo, which was an old cold storage plant, and I had to fight for years and years. It filled up my time, maybe a half-time job for 20 years, because the city wanted to turn down this building. And why I started to struggle with this place, because 120 people used to work there and work there up to now. And it was very important to me to prove that it's possible to keep this place for working people. If I involved so many years, really years and years to this battle, it's because I must say that probably around the world there's no similar building. Why? Because it's not an artist building. You have also here in Kansas City, and in Kansas generally speaking, some buildings for artists. In New York, in Berlin, some specific buildings for artists, or squats, or real rented places. What is the difference? Why it's really unique? Not better, but unique. This is important, not better. Unique in a way that it's not an artist building. There you can find editors of magazines. You can find small industries. You can find rehearsal places. You can find entrepreneurs, different entrepreneurs and artists. Why? Because this old building, as several old buildings which were industrial buildings, are used now frequently as studios because they have large resistant floors and these kind of things. And spontaneously, so many different people came around when the original owner rented it. Who was the owner? It was the National Rail Company. Strangely, they got this building when the plant finished as a cold storage plant, and they couldn't do anything with except to rent it to people, crazy people, who was able to accept a place without windows. It was a cold storage place. And we had to make the windows, we had to put light, we had to spend a lot of money and to pay also the rent, which means that it was a very special situation. And this is why I fight for, because to have this kind of real incredible diversity is just amazing. It helps people to live together because we can work together. For example, the photographer can make the catalogs for the artists. The industrial sometimes give job for some artists, because the so-called starving artist sometimes had to get some job, and this guy could give job in his industry, and so forth, which means that it was socially, economically, humanly a very interesting experience. And I thought that it was good to involve years and years, as I told, to save the place, because what was the project of the city? Is to put a bank office building in what is different for the city? In nothing. We have so many bank offices as you have here, and it was good to try to keep this place. And finally, I think it's saved forever. This is what I hope. I don't know if there's a real effect on the city economically, on the whole city, but necessarily when people work, when they're able to sell the work or to show the musicians make concerts, it makes money parallel to the cultural effect, because, for example, our musicians for the building, when they go to give a concert, it means that they have to rent a place, to give work for technicians, and so forth. That means that it's a real economic power, which is a little hidden. Usually people don't think about the economical aspect of the artistic world. For example, when I make an exhibition in a gallery, it means that the gallery will make money not only selling my work, but they have to give money for the assistants, for the lightings. It makes a whole economical background. And when I went here downtown, in Crossroads and in different places, I met some people in galleries, and they have hard time also here, because the economy is really low and down. But at the same time, I met very enthusiastic people who try to continue to run galleries, even making maybe some parallel job. And it's not easy, but it's the same in Europe. We are speaking about this problem in a very specific year, because the Europe, for example, maybe will be finished. We don't know. It's really on the edge. And you don't know what will happen in the United States, the same. We have running for elections, you have running for elections too. We have no idea what a new president can do, because now all the power in between the hands of the big economy guys, I mean in the big companies. The whole power in the big companies' hands. And when I went downtown here in Kansas City, I saw these old industrial buildings, which partly are empty, which shows up the situation. And at the same time, it's a luck maybe for artists, because they can get studios, maybe inexpensive studios. And I met also somebody who has maybe 20 or 30 studios in a building. She is an artist, and she rents the spaces for artists too, which means that if I go over the situation, I think we can compare the situation economically for small industries, for workshops, for artists. It's the same situation in Europe, at least in France, and here. If I want to switch to my work, it's not so easy, because here I have some new work I made in Kansas, which are not typically the same as I do it usually in my place, for two reasons. I had not the same spaces, not the same tools, not the same mediums, and it was a very good experience. And traveling, what I did in Japan, what I did in Italy, and even the United States, in other parts of the United States, the advantage when you travel, you are under pressure. How to work with the new mediums, how to work with different tools. And here, what I can show is a little different of my usual work. I'm next to, for example, a kind of spatial landscape, which is a table at the same time. Usually my work hang on walls. Why? Because I try to feel myself flying above the earth and to see kind of strange city landscapes flying over, kind of bird's eye view. This is my usual way. And I like this idea to not to put so many things on the floor, because it's a kind of lie to show the pieces, the sculptures on the floor, because it gives the impression of a flat earth, as people thought thousands and thousands of years ago. It's just a small potato running in the space, and we are on, upside down, and no directions, no up, no down, as it was told by some people during Galileo period. They told not up, down, not just infinity. And this is my idea, to try to express in sculpture, this idea to not have directions. And it's a little artificial, but this is the only way I found for my sculpture. Hanging on the wall, you are facing from above the earth. And this kind of a little strange city landscapes, I hope, give the idea to the viewer, this is my experience in my exhibitions, to give the impression to the viewers to be really looking at the real earth from above in the space, and to feel themselves being a part of the space of the whole universe, and not just what we see by eyes, which is just a part of our reality. Partly this angle of view on the landscapes from above comes from another story. My father was a researcher, and home we had some microscopes, and very young I experienced to see the things from above, bending on the microscope, and to see unknown things moving under the microscope, and to discover that our eyes are not able to see the real world, and all the hidden things will appear thanks to the microscope. And bending on the microscope, first I discovered to see things from above, and even to discover that are hidden things. And thanks to my father, I discovered this, and maybe this is involved also in my sculptures, because I try sometimes to open my kind of fields, my landscapes, and to see under the earth what's happening. I have a work, for example, which shows the roots of a tree at the same time as the tree is visible, coming up from the wall, and the earth is cutted with a scalpel, kind of scalpel, and we can see the roots. And maybe this scalpel idea to open the earth and to see under comes from the idea that I followed some anatomy studies, because I want to go maybe to the medical school too, and I followed anatomy studies for a while, and these anatomy studies helped me to understand that it's good to see the things from above, under, and to have a general view of our reality, the real reality, if I can say, over our first impression we can have by eyes. We have to think thanks to tools, thanks to microscopes, thanks to satellites, thanks to real intellectual investment to understand our life on Earth and what is Earth. This is my goal in sculpture. This is my first goal, to have another look on our life and to understand that we are really, I don't want to say nothing, but so small in the universe and so fragile in the universe. I don't say it in an ecological way. I say it just in a very simple way. We are really small in the universe. That's it. And to realize this exceptional, very specific life on this small Earth, which is really maybe not the only one in the universe, probably not the only one, but for the moment we know only just this one. We will go on Mars in a few years, but we know already there's no life there except some very small things. But this is very exciting to know that we were able to build this incredible life on Earth. And if I can express it in a very small way, very weak way, but to express it in sculpture, I would be happy. This is the most difficult question, to know if I can be influenced by anybody, because usually artists, I don't like the word artist. Usually I say I am an object maker, a tree maker or anything. I don't like the word artist, because now it's very confusing to know which is art, which is not art. In France, they tried to cancel all the borderlines in between all the expressions. And now it's, again, I prefer to say object maker. When I make this object, who could influence me? At the beginning of my studies, obviously, I was involved in the normal sculpture way, the classical sculpture work, for example, with Henry Moore, with Giacometti, with all these sculptures, which were really up when I started my studies in the art school. And after I went maybe a little further, experiencing some very abstract work, not doing with them, but just accepting them. It was very difficult to me to accept abstract work because it wasn't the period in the art school. And we had very classical professors. And for example, I started to write very much Rothko for I don't know what reason, because I am really involved in sculpture and not on paintings. But maybe the texture, the very specific texture of Rothko was close to me. It's a little rough surface, a little sculpture in a certain way. And some others, Oldenburg, and some others interested to me after a while. But up to now, I prefer sculptors to painters for some reason. And the influences were very weak because, for example, in art history, I try to not follow too much my courses in the art school. I didn't want to have too much influences about work already done, which was a crazy idea because it's better to know. Because sometimes you repeat and you repeat things, think that you invented them, and they were done already maybe centuries ago. But again, probably I had influences even if I tried to avoid them, because you have influences just looking around. And even if you don't go in museums, even if you don't go in galleries, you are influenced just by chance, by nature, by people showing to you just by chance things, and so forth. Which means that you are influenced every day, not only artists, everybody is influenced about the daily life. And to give you a precise name, who was my master, I don't know. It's just a general view to everybody. Being here in JCCC now for 4 months, I disconnected completely France, except the political aspect. I am listening to the polls and to to the elections. But except this, I must say that I try to be disconnected of my place, because when I spent, for example, 4 years in Italy, I became an Italian. When I spent 6 months in Japan, I tried to be a Japanese, but unfortunately I don't speak Japanese except a few words. But in Italy, I became really a citizen. When I was in Arizona for a year, 10 years ago, exactly 10 years ago, I became a citizen because my English was quite good at that time, and I had to work there with the people. I settled down for more than a year there, thanks to a Fulbright, I must say. It wasn't my possibility to go there for so long time, except if I got the specific visa and some help thanks to the Fulbright. And it means that usually I try to live 100% in the place where I am, when I am, as I told, to use the different mediums, to meet people, to meet people, and to be involved as far as possible in the place, disconnected from friends. If I am thinking about, for example, French food, I am over. I am not in the United States. Even if there's, in Kansas City, you have a French restaurant, even two, I don't like to go there because I want to experience what people eat here and what is the usual life, daily life for everybody here, not to be the foreigner, even if immediately, because my accent and my poor knowledge and vocabulary in English, everybody knows immediately that I am a foreigner. But you have so many foreigners here for years and years, being American already, but having an accent. I could be here, just living here. And this is what I tried to get, this acceptance. Close to return home now in a couple of weeks, and probably I will remember, first of all, not only the people, the very kind people here around, very friendly people, but also the place. JCC has, and I don't say it just to be kind, has a very good equipment, specifically in ceramics, in sculpture, which are my field. I saw a very good equipment. For example, I could make my first experience pouring aluminium, making a foundry a piece here in the French National Fine Art School. No foundry. And this is a college, not the National Fine Art School, which means that the students has good opportunity to make very good experiences and to experience so many materials if they want, which is very important. This is what I will tell in France if somebody asks me what was the experience. I will tell first, very friendly people, but it's known. France knows that in USA usually people are friendly, and for some reason you like French people. Maybe it's true for other people too, but we know that there's a link in between France and USA, in USA and France, now for centuries. And this is the first point. Friendly people, very efficient college. This is my impression. Maybe you have problems, as every college, but I mean, my impression was that it's possible to work very well here for some students who want to work. The only difference that you have to pay for here. In France, you don't pay for schools. Up to now. I don't know what will happen now with the big economical problems. But this is maybe the explanation why we don't have a foundry in the Fine Art School, because it's a centralized country. The government has to pay for every school. And maybe they have less money than here. And students have to pay a lot of money, but they have good possibilities. And this is very important. I will tell it in French. And what else? Maybe also that the Midwest, it's not nowhere. The Midwest has real collections, real people interested by art, by culture. If I said all these things about Kansas City, about JCCC, I have to underline that I could discover all these places, all these new things to me, thanks to people, obviously. And for example, the first day, Elizabeth Kirsch showed me all the galleries downtown just to see what's happening here. And after, in the sculpture studio, where I had been accepted by Mark Coverdin. After a while, when I made this steel landscape, table landscape, I can call it a writing table or writing case, something like that. There's a red apple, and for this red apple, it was impossible to make it from steel, which means that Mark suggested to me to use the facilities here, the foundry. And for the first time, I put myself in a form, the aluminium, and I made this apple in the foundry. And which means that I met Elizabeth Kirsch, Mark Coverdin, Larry in the painting studio, other people in the ceramic studio, Alison for the art history, listening to on Fridays to some explanation about artwork in the college with students, with staff people and faculty people. It was very exciting and very interesting. And over this, I met after musicians, I met after some painters, and step by step, I was a little home. Maybe 4 months is not enough, but in a certain way, up to now, I think that I will be back someday here, because I feel also already the possibility to be involved in the life here very easily, and to continue maybe some sculptures, because when I made the other piece made here, it's called Flint Hills. You know what? I went to Flint Hills with a professor. His name is Leaker, and he wanted to show me this very special place, Flint Hills. And for some reason, it impressed me, and I made a sculpture which shows Flint Hills in a little abstract way, but this is my Flint Hills. And also some other work here. I made only 4 sculptures here, which helped me to be here, not just giving lectures. That was very important to me. Not showing only slideshows, but also to show to the students, to their new friends, some real work. And that was very important to me too, because a sculptor or a painter or some other object maker exists only through his pieces, not just speaking. When I speak, as I do it now, it has consistency only if I can show my real work.